that either at the time or later on you realized helped change the direction or change your path? There's some stories that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to share with you that help create the map or model that you're learning here. I was in practice just a few years, and a practice member, a patient at the time I called them, came to me. She had rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus erythematosus. When I asked her questions about her history of life, what happened to her, she would sit with her hands like this, arms down, shoulders down, her hands between her legs, and look down. Do not look me in the eye. Her spinal posture was generally like this. At that time, I was asking people questions that I thought would help more. Rather than just about, tell me about your symptom, I asked them, what do you think it meant? At that time, I asked, if you're ill, why do you think you're ill? If you're well, why do you think you're well? And I asked other questions such as, what happened in your life that brought you this place? Or the different type of traumas. And after a while, I would feel patterns and say, wow, when a person had a major event, a loss or a major traumatic event in their life, from after 10 years of that pattern, the spine felt a certain way. After 5 years, a certain way, 20 years. And after many people, I had a sense of that. Because when you ask the questions and look for patterns, guess what? You very often find answers. So I asked this woman, did anything happen to you maybe about 16 years ago, a trauma? And at that time, it was mid-1980s, and I would not have said sexual trauma because that was not in the conversation publicly. So I said, what's the time for trauma or some type of abuse that may have happened to you? Why? Because the body posture being like this, not being able to look at me at that time, head being down like this, and suggested to me an emotional pattern going on. And the muscle pattern felt like a little bit more than 15 years. So I said, maybe 16 years ago? And she says, no, nothing, no, nothing. Now, this woman had difficulty opening and closing her hands for the rheumatoid arthritis, and she was having challenges systemically with this lupus at the time. My chiropractic analysis at the time suggested that I look at the fifth cervical vertebra. So I went there and I actually held a sustained contact under the fifth cervical spinous process. Within a few seconds, the white woman screamed, gut-wrenching scream. Turned around, looked at me, punched me in my face. I had glass at the time, broke the glasses, started scratching my face, leaped up off the table. And it was a high-low. She leaped up off the table onto the floor. Boom, right onto the floor. And she started saying, get off me, get off me, get off me, screaming at me. I wasn't on her. Now, honestly, my level of development at that time, and I was about 25 years old at that time, and I heard about the body-mind connection. There was no books really about that. It was not in the popular press. Deepak Chopra's books weren't about that. You didn't hear about the body-emotional connection. There was a theory about that. What I did hear that a person will retrace the same steps they went to getting ill, and I realized a person could retrace physically, emotionally, and chemically. I said, maybe it's retracing. Then the woman started vomiting, and I had, that time, high-pile green shag carpeting in the room. And my mind was, how am I going to clean the carpet? I mean, that's a young practitioner thought. And she's yelling and screaming. And I had a black and blue eye happened. And I ran out of the room. I ran out of the waiting room, not knowing what to do, how to handle it. My receptionist said, what do you do? And she looked at me and said, what happened to you? I said, I don't know. I held a contact to her spine and she decked me. And my mind is saying how crazy this woman is. Because it was easier to say how crazy she was than for me to really be with the energy of what really was happening and the magic that was happening in that moment. Well, I went back into the room. And she's saying, thank you, doctor, thank you, doctor. I don't know what she was saying thank you for. She just punched me. So she's opening her hands and closing her hands like that. She said, I haven't been so free. I don't remember when. Okay. A couple of visits later, she's in, and I had a part-time associate there came, and I said, if C5 comes up, hold a gentle contact and keep your distance. And what happened, I heard, scream. Same type of thing with him. He ran in the room and said, what'd you do to her? In both cases, all the practice members, patients ran out of the office. I mean, I'm not going to be around with this person. Even my receptionist doubted what I did. But I said, it's him too. So I realized there's a pattern going on here. And she opened her hands again and was really, really joyous. Well, she came in a few visits later, and I really didn't want to go for C5 anymore. I said, maybe I'll do C1 or some other area, but I went for C5. And the most beautiful little girl laughter, infectious laughter, joyous laughter. And I asked, what happened? And she said, I forgive him. I forgive who? I realized the last few visits, my stepfather raped me about 16 and a half years ago. I didn't remember it. And you know what, Donald? So what? Actually, he said Dr. Donnie, because I used a doctor name then. Dr. Donnie. So you know what? I realized I wouldn't have gone into the field I went to. Do you know what I do? I said, well, you're a social worker. I said, yes, but you know what my area is? What? I work the rape hotline. I would not have the hunger to do this if this didn't happen. And I forgive him. So what did I say at the time? You can forgive that bastard. Here, I said, how could you forgive what he did? She said, I forgive him because it set me on my path. That was astounding to me. But the most important part is next. Next visit, she came in, a sing-songy voice, happy. She said her stepfather called her the first time she spoke to him around 16 years to apologize. When she forgave him, somehow there was a connection between him and her across space that created a change. I cared for her the next few months, actually about 3 or 4 years, and then she moved away, and I lost track with her. What started happening more and more is I started to see the relationship between a person's having an emotion they couldn't fully experience, that tension in the body, the posture, connection to upset or a story about someone else, and a healing process that was aborted. And I started seeing that as the spine went through its normal state, and as the emotions started shifting and the spine started changing with this, it wasn't just the person's symptom went away. Their life was being healed, and they somehow saw a gift in this. I saw this over and over and over. So that was one story. Second story.